Welcome to Vermont Today. I'm your host, Terence Jeroloman, and my guests this time are Ernie Pomerleau, Linda Pervier, and Lise Veronneau. The city of Burlington welcomes Francophones and people of French ancestry, as a third of our population has French roots. We are going to talk about some of the things of interest to French speakers who come here as tourists or for shopping from Quebec or even from France. Linda Pervier is president of the Alliance Francaise of the Champlain Valley region. Linda, would you like to tell us about the Alliance and your work there?
Sure, I'll give you a little lesson. We are one chapter in a worldwide association of Alliances Francaise. All of them celebrate French culture, teach and value French language, and very often they also have a quasi-governmental diplomatic role because they work with local diplomats representing France and other French-speaking countries such as Quebec. We do all those. And then, and I know we'll get into this as we talk, we also play a number of roles in strengthening the French-friendly initiatives in the Burlington area.
I studied at two of the Alliance Francaise. I studied in New York. I took French classes in New York City. And then when I was in Paris, I spent a couple of months studying at the Alliance there.
That's really great. You know, that's how I got started. I was mostly unaware of my own French heritage on my mother's side. Mid-20s, I took my first trip to Europe. Something happened. I don't know, the train pulled into Gare du Nord, and I stepped out, and it was the proverbial coup de foudre. I just sort of fell in love with the whole idea and decided rather than passing through for a few days, I ended up staying a couple of months, and I studied at the Paris Center of the Alliance Francaise, just like you did.
And Lise Veronneau is coordinator of Sister City project in Burlington. Lisa, what is the Sister City project?
The Sister City project started in March of 2012. We're only a year old. And it was the mayor's initiative to allow a sister city to be created with Honfleur, France, and to promote the cultural diversity and cultural exchange and education, art, commerce. It would evolve. And between March of 2012 and in October of 2012, there was a delegation from the state of Vermont in Burlington. Representation from Tom Torty from Chamber of Commerce and Kristen Bourgeois from the state of Vermont and Mr. Pomerleau and myself. And there was a few of us that all went down to go to Honfleur to go study what we could bring back, and the exchange is going to continue because in July this year, the Honfleur delegation is coming. The mayor of Honfleur is coming to Burlington, Vermont. So we will continue the exchange of business and art, and just what can we offer at agricultural exchanges. You know, it's just getting started. So we're just looking forward to expanding our associations with French-speaking of all kinds, including France. And Samuel Champlain is why we pick Honfleur, and Honfleur picked us because Burlington is on Lake Champlain, and this is where Samuel Champlain sailed from.
Champlain sailed from Honfleur, but
he sailed from Honfleur.
He didn't actually live there.
He lived in the Honfleur proximate town. Yes, yes.
Burlington has other sister cities too. We have a sister city in Russia.
Yes.
Yes.
Yaroslav.
Yes, Yaroslav. As a matter of fact, I was the translator in French because in Russia, that's as a second language. And the Russian fire chief at the time did not speak English, but he spoke French. So French became this universal connection, even in Russia. So we took him to Montreal and showed him the 911 center. It was part of the Cultural Explain, was about public safety, but it's just, that's how sister cities evolve.
The Pomerleau family is one of the most successful Quebecois origin in Vermont. Ernie, would you like to tell us about your family's Quebec origin and how they became so successful?
Those are two topics, but we'll try to go with the first one. My ancestors came from Nice, France, which was at one point part of Italy called Nice. That's why my father's name is Antonio. That's how that lineage came. Etienne Vachon came to Quebec and then settled into southern Quebec. And then sometime in the 1800s, two brothers woke up one day and said, you know, everybody in this town is Mary and Joseph Vachon, and they wanted to change their name. And Pomerleau came out of the discussion between two brothers one morning. And so for me to follow back my heritage with a name that just got created in 1800 is actually very quick and very cool, because we've met people in Chicago and Maine with that name, and they go right back to Etienne. So we have a long, long history. And then, as you indicated, you know, 30–40% of the people in this area have that kind of culture. And that's what you're hearing, that we're here to kind of celebrate, because our whole area here is like a mobile. You touch any part of it and it moves. But if you look at the part with heritage, it's cultural, it's economic, and it has a lot of diplomacy with it. With what our state does with Quebec, what we do with France now, on all sorts of levels. And our message is not only to celebrate our own culture, but to continuously send up a message to those that we're very close to, that we welcome our friends to the north.
What was your experience with French growing up in Burlington?
Oh, well, the Alliance Francaise, I think you'll recall, Terry, you know, last week was the end of the Francophonie celebration of March. And we had a flag-raising ceremony in Burlington, where we had the Consul General from Boston of France, we had the Canadian delegate, we had the governor, we had the mayor of Burlington, we had Alliance, we had Lise from the Enfleur Society. And then that evening we did a similar thing in Montpelier. There's a play, if anybody has not seen it, by Abby Page called When We Were French.
Piecework, When We Were French.
I have to tell you, whoops, I was supposed to hit that. I lived this play. It's the second time I saw it. I laughed through the whole thing. The terms that I had forgotten, you know, Winooski, Burlington. My grandmother only spoke French. If you went to Winooski, you would meet people that only spoke French. The Bobbin Mills, St. Stephen was, they would post when the masses were in English. So this incredible heritage that I saw was played out in the play beautifully by a single person, and depicted what my youth was. And so, but most people in the place had some connectivity to it. So if you have any question what it was like being raised in Burlington, you just have to see that play, because that's what it was like.
Was it your grandparents or your parents that moved here from Quebec?
My grandparents came across the border from the Le Beauce area, and interesting, my father was speaking to Lise the other night, and her grandmother?
My father's mother and father.
And my grandmother was born in the Le Beauce area in Saint-Victoire, right?
Yes.
And so there's a lot of connections when you come this close. Most Pomerleaus went to Maine, lumber, potato farms, and the like. If you go to northern Maine, you'll see a lot of Pomerleau signs. Here, we were the only family, and my grandparents came across into, well, Barton to begin with. They had a farm, and then that burned, and they ended up getting in a general store business. Anyway, my father was raised in the Newport area. That's where his ties are. So then he became kind of a traveling shoe salesman, worked as a manager of Endicott Johnson in the late 40s on Church Street, decided he was going to stay here. And so he came as a general manager of a shoe store.
My family, my mother and father were both born and raised in Quebec. And so when my father come from a family of 13 on a farm, and he wanted to start another life, and he said, I'm going to go to the United States. I'm not speaking any English, but I can do this. And he came, and he ended up working at General Electric right on the waterfront. And he was an ironsmith, so he was able to transfer his skills to the metallurgy to build and work on the equipment that they were building. Yeah, the engines.
So they came down not speaking English.
Not speaking
And that was my
English.
grandparents. My father didn't speak English,
Right.
so you know, he went to school.
Right, and I remember going to school. I was in second grade before I realized, you know, I'm not speaking the language, and the teachers would just pass you on. It was just, because you just look what everybody else is doing, right, and you figure it out. But the fact is, we learned our French, we learned our English going to school. So it's funny that people are going
The other
France,
way,
right.
coming back.
We learned English by being here. So by third grade, I was speaking English.
That brings me to my next question. Why do you think the local public schools abandoned their 1950s and 60s practice of half-day French and half-day English instruction?
That's probably, we all probably have a piece of that, but
I wish I knew. I think that societal values just sort of ebb and flow, and somehow it fell out of favor momentarily. And believe me, we're hitting this at several angles to try to make French available to young people.
Do you think we might go back to half-day French again?
Well, that would be a very bright, shiny day, and I don't really anticipate that. But one of the initiatives at our Alliance Francaise is that we are throughout Chittenden County now, I think in 3 different school systems, and working on more, offering after-school programs that we manage and we offer as a baby step toward that goal.
But they're hugely successful. I mean, that's what we're celebrating. I mean, when you look at Lisa's program with Sister City with Honfleur and the celebration of that connectivity of Champlain, it all stemmed from the Quadcentennial, and it has mushroomed. It was 5 years ago.
Right.
And in that, we've done a lot of French classes. I mean, in an ideal world, with a culture as strong as this is, with millions across the border, to promote the French language, to promote French signs at the airport. 40% of our employments at the airport are Canadian. So Lisa's been working diligently, and Linda, with more and more French signs, French translations, French menus, the retail hospitality industry with the Chamber, with working with Burlington Square Mall, with the Marketplace, are all starting to acknowledge the importance of offering this to our friends to the north. And even if they speak English, it's courtesy.
Right.
We want to...
I think we're finding more and more business partners, the Burlington Business Association, and again, the state. It's just everybody coming together and saying, this is important, this is real. There is a real interest in being able to communicate better in French. And I think the right organizations are getting together, and really in a very short period of time.
Very short period of time.
I think because it's educational, it's cultural, it's exciting to learn something new to begin with, but then to get to use it and help somebody feel comfortable that's visiting, I think is a natural thing we would all want to do.
Well, in your prior segment, talking about the meetings, getting together, speaking French for our local culture, offering these classes out beyond the scopes of what was normally offered. So I don't know if it'll get back into the schools as strong, but certainly part of our discussions to accelerate that a little bit. Lisa's got a whole protocol with Burlington High School, with Honfleur, the educational transfer of Skype. So I think the beginnings of it is the students see the excitement around it and the importance and the culture and the economics. And then this ability to talk to France back and forth, I think will accelerate that.
We're making it easy.
Yeah, making it
easy. And I think that's the technology piece of this is really cannot be understated, because we are across the ocean, and yet it's like they're right here in our own space, and people are taking advantage of that. And the students are excited. They do it naturally. So I think it's funny, because I think the adults will get there because the students, the young people, are getting there quickly as well. So.
Well, in a standard ATM in this city not too long ago said, what are your choices, Spanish or English? And now there's French. So I think there's a much higher awareness.
You mentioned the technology. The internet makes it so easy. Almost every day I listen to the TF1, the French news, and I get it as quickly as they do in Paris.
Oh, sure.
RTBF from Belgium, I get that on the internet. It's just like the TV in Brussels.
Interesting.
We have so much in common. We have more in common than not. And then it's the interest in what is different. It's exciting to learn something new, to see something different. With the artists, for example, that we saw we were in France, when we were on the Honfleur delegation was in France. And obviously the Monets and all of the history, but there's a lot of new artists, and here in Vermont, in Burlington as well. And we're looking to do an artist exchange, because again, art is something people can put their heart into, and language is another to the heart.
We had one of the consul generals from Boston at an event at Shelburne Museum, right? We were having dinner, and in the large White House, I walked in a little late, and the Consul General was there going, he looked at me with this strange look on his face, and he said, "Do you know there are 5 Monets here?" And I started to laugh. Right here. And so anyway, there's a whole bunch of elements that are kind of fun. And the Honfleur piece, when we were there, we also learned that there's 500,000 people that fly from France to Quebec a year. There's direct flights from Marseille. So we want to make sure we gather. There are 750,000 Canadians that cross the border into Vermont every year. That is that's the size of Vermont.
Right, right.
The size of Vermont comes down from Canada every year. The economic impact of that is huge. And we want to make sure that we are as welcoming as we can possibly be while simultaneously celebrating our culture.
Right. So like the Consul General and visitors from Quebec and France, and when they were at the flag raising, saying that Vermont is possibly the most important French connection in the United States.
Right.
And it's because of our proximity to Quebec and our openness and willingness to make the outreach to France and Quebec simultaneously.
And the fact that we are celebrating our French roots. I don't think that happens everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're getting to do a better and better job of it all the time.
Like the music that's going to be on Church Street at French
Yeah,
Quebec
that'll help.
in front of the Burlington Square, yeah.
Terry,
Well, Ernie-
one note before we leave the childhood French behind completely. I'm going to give a little plug here. We do so many things at the Alliance, it's hard for me to get them all out. But we do have a library at our center. And recently, due to the efforts of a wonderful volunteer named Elaine Kelly, we sort of got it more organized than it's ever been. We have something like 140 books in French for children all the way from the wee little tiny ones to slightly older kids. And that is a resource that's sitting there. I think parents who are interested in introducing their kids to more French need to give me a call, and I'm sure our contact information will be on your website, so we can make that happen.
And maybe our viewers will send their children.
Let's hope.
Absolutely.
By the way, Linda, and this is the first year, although she's been almost full-time, this is the first year that the Alliance has a full-time president in place really promoting this whole concept. So this whole element has continually expanded. Lise has been taking the forefront with the Honfleur Committee, which, you know, not only is education, not only art, but when we were there, we presented to the mayor, who's coming in July,
Right.
and we're going to have a big thing with that, the Don de Dieu, the gift of God, the name of the ship that Samuel Champlain sailed from the port in 1608 from Honfleur to Quebec, and then came down and discovered Lake Champlain. So the triangle of France and Quebec and Vermont is huge. And that we want to captivate.
And that's at the airport. It's on display at the airport. And also
With the Honfleur flag.
with the Honfleur flag that we brought over, and the replica that we brought over to Honfleur. So now we have the ship in Honfleur, which they welcome because they were like, this is in their own history. And then we brought the same here. So we're really connected, not just by the stories, but today in 2012, 2013, we have shared artifacts that are, you know, they're the same.
We have a picture right here that you took
Yes.
in Honfleur.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's right
Oh,
downtown
what a
Honfleur.
beautiful, beautiful community. Gorgeous. It's I think this is
Historic.
correct. It's the most highly visited
Yep.
community in France, second only to Paris.
To Paris, and they love having visitors from Quebec because they say Quebec visitors are the original France from the homeland. So they really liked hearing it. I wasn't sure how that was going to be because it's a different French, slightly different dialect. It was very welcomed and very sincerely encouraged and they said they do get a lot of Quebec visitors and would love to continue that. Absolutely.
Linda, you mentioned the Alliance. That's in Colchester, right, at Fort Ethan Allen?
Right. We have 2 classrooms and a little office at 123 Ethan Allen Avenue up there.
That's not very far outside of Burlington. It takes about 15 minutes to drive
Less than that.
on Route 15. Yeah. Ernie, you're the Honorary Consul of France in Vermont. Would you like to tell us about that role?
Sure. It happened around the time of the Quadcentennial. working with the chamber, working with the city, with Burlington Arts. And we saw this as, when you look back, the prior 100 years, there were like 30,000 people that came into this city. So we saw this as a moment of connecting all the discussions the state was having with Quebec on power, on transportation, on energy. I mean, all sorts of wonderful dialogues at the time. And then, because we also knew that there was this French connection, Governor Douglas asked me to do this. I thought he was kidding because I didn't know what it was. But anyway, I became the Honorary Consul of France to Vermont. And so because of my culture and my background, and the fact that I really saw, we are a retail developer, and anything that we could do to stimulate the economic, cultural connection made, like, yeah, sure, good idea. But I was fascinated watching through the 400th anniversary of Samuel de Champlain's discovering of Lake Champlain, and what it meant. I mean, dealing with our congressional delegation, our state delegation, our tourist bureau, our economic bureau, the city, the local, and being a tremendous celebration. Children's singing groups from France and Quebec and Vermont put together. All sorts of politicians coming together, and commemoration, and on. It was a long festivity. And then, artists and the like, and it just came up, we got these wampums from,
Right.
Yeah.
it's incredible that the Jesuit priests were given by the Algonquins, a million years ago. And so there were all these moving parts, but the French government, both in Quebec and in France, were very, very supportive of this. And so it kind of galvanized us, and we saw the opportunities. So I guess I stayed on because nobody fired me. And I've been helping to sponsor the French lessons, making sure that the Alliance becomes stronger, because I see it for all the reasons that we talked. And then I help stimulate the connectivity to Honfleur, working with the city, with the state. So it's been a fun trip. I only do things that I have fun at.
By the way, I think this is a standard structure for many, many alliances the world over. Whoever becomes that honorary local representative with the diplomatic system is, in our bylaws, becomes a member of the Alliance Board of Directors in that community. So we made it official, and we've made it a lot of fun and very active ever since.
And as these guys will attest, I only do things that I have fun at.
Very much so.
So I see this as a process of enjoyment, stimulating a culture, and I said the economy, the politics, diplomacy, and the culture. And anytime, this community is rich in 1,000 things, but it's rich in, there's so many facets because there's so many passionate people driving this, not just this, but so many parts. And it's like bringing that whole thing together. This is just one sliver, but it's a rich component of the whole fabric.
And Vermont is French, as you know.
Yeah,
Vermont.
Vermont.
How many states in the United States are that French? Really, and then Montpellier is French.
Yeah.
So
Vert is the French word for green.
Oui.
And Mont is mountain, so
Oui,
it's,
sure.
it's
Green
Green
Mountain State.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yep.
And it resonates, this whole thing resonated so wonderfully in Honfleur. And then I have to tell you, out of that, not to digress because I think it's right on, we went up to the Normandy invasion site, the memorial. Now, one of the things that the Honorary Consul does is they are allowed to submit names to the French government of France for the Legion of Honor, the highest medal that can be granted by the French government to a civilian. And it's given to those members of our society that helped liberate France during World War II. I had done it, it's so moving. You have somebody 95 that has 4 generations behind them listening to something that no one in the family ever heard, what that invasion day was like. When we went there,
I get chills
I
thinking about that being
I
there.
think there were a number of us walking around for an hour in complete silence. Probably
on the beaches and then
one of the 5, I would say the top 5 most moving experiences of my life. But I understood our connection with France at a visceral connective level, that they were with us in the Revolutionary War, we were with them, and they asked us to help liberate from Nazi Germany. And the cost was horrific. So now they're offering these medals, and it's beautiful. One man in Maine at 92 received this. He died 2 weeks later, with one request, that be on his suit. It's so meaningful. But I've been at a number of these ceremonies, and it's the little, those are my gifts in doing this, because obviously I get much more out of it than I get.
There's an official French consul in Boston, I think.
Yes, there is.
How do you relate?
Oh,
with-
constantly. That's really the connection that I go down periodically. They have attachés. We work either with what I was just telling you about, or Ann Miller, who's working with education in French. Fabien Fieschi is now the brand new consul general. The consulate is very supportive.
Just for example, the Consul General and the Cultural Attaché, both, Mr. Fieschi and Ann Miller, attended our event in Montpelier the other night when we kicked off the run of performances of Abby Page's wonderful play. And they are always in touch with what we're doing. They always have suggestions. They want to be visible. They want to help us be visible. It's an excellent,
really
excellent
interaction.
relationship.
Very strong. And as well with the Canadian delegate. We have a new delegate that just came on.
Jean Saint-Ange.
And nice gentleman. There was a change in the government in Quebec, so they changed the delegate. But they understand the importance. Interesting, he is this year's president of the Francophonie gatherings, and so he being here at the flag raising, which, by the way, flew for a day or so at
Yes.
City Hall. It represents all the countries in the world that speak French. Kind of looks like an Olympic.
Olympic flag with the
But
color.
it's just one more level of celebration
Yep.
about
Connectivity.
those connectivities.
You mentioned the 400-year anniversary.
Yeah.
I think we have a.
Yes, I brought that.
This comes from the.
So this was from the original kickoff in 2009, and it was the 400th anniversary celebration. We had a statue put up on the waterfront.
On the waterfront.
Yes.
On the
A
waterfront.
beautiful, beautiful.
And the letters that were carved out, and on the other side, the letters that were standing out to show that how connected we are. We are one.
Yeah, it's
when we put
beautifully
us
done.
together. And since this original, oops, I'm probably flashing too much here. Original kickoff, we've really decided to focus on all the different aspects of French culture and French groups, and then hence Honfleur become. There was actually a group of people that went to Honfleur in 2009, and the whole French connection, and to say we need to have a sister city, and Jumelage was created in 2012.
But it created a bond. I mean, look at the discussion going on here between the consulate in Boston, the delegate in Quebec, Honfleur Committee,
Burlington, Vermont.
and then Alliance Francaise. You take Burlington and Rod Redmond of the Marketplace. We're really working closely to make sure the Marketplace is participating in this. Kelly at the BBA is really on this. Tom Torty and the Convention Bureau spawning this. I mean, it's really grown into be quite the fabric. Doreen Kraft at Burlington Arts has been super supportive from she helped, was like at the core of the
original
the
2009
original
group.
Quadcentennial is on our committee. And Moreau, the mayor, has been incredible. Karina and her, I mean, it's endless. It's a huge group of people that, understand all the economics, the politics, and the cultural components about it. So we're delighted that it was like little Johnny Appleseed putting out a bunch of, little seeds, and now it's grown.
And Ernie, I have to agree with something you said a few minutes ago. It's all about these incredibly passionate people.
Yeah.
It's people that care, that have a vision, that have the energy, and they give even beyond what they might reasonably do for some crazy reason. This is terribly important to a whole bunch of us.
Well, watch out. I neglected Burlington Square. They're
The town center.
the town
yeah.
center. They're pulling in and letting us work out of that, and it's growing. And we're here.
Right, and it's
We're here today doing this with you. So
A lot of these groups are volunteer groups.
Completely.
The Alliance Francaise is 100% volunteer till this
Absolutely.
year in January, when that was made possible for Linda to
You mean we're not
be
paid?
president. We were not paid, no. You thought we were paid because you were having so
Oh.
much fun.
But even though we have 700,000 people visiting from
Yeah.
Quebec every year, we're still interested in growing our tourism business
Absolutely.
here in Burlington. And so, Ernie, what would you say was the best single strategy for making the tourism grow here in Burlington?
The single one, I would say if I were to pick one, I would go to one moment in time to show you its impact. When the Alliance Francaise did their first French-speaking lesson, WCAX, a CBS affiliate.
You're talking about the downtown classes.
The downtown classes.
That you made possible for the
Oh,
local
yeah, yeah.
merchants.
Right, the body shop
Yeah, those.
example, right.
So I assisted the Alliance Francaise because I saw that we needed to start this process.
Yeah.
So I sponsored it. But what came out of it was the next day after the CBS system had beamed to our
Right.
society. But what we all kind of forgot was that Channel 5, Channel 3, and 4 are really picked up because they look at American TV,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it had like a 60-second segment, which is like forever,
Long, right.
forever. Our phones started to ring off
Right.
the hook.
Yep.
And then what I have is on two Canadian French newspapers, on the front page, translated, it says basically on the top in French, Burlington, Vermont welcomes their friends to the north. It shows a picture of Church Street and then has the story that had been beamed up. We were picked up on public radio equivalent, 2 TV stations, 2 or 3 newspapers, and I'm like, you couldn't hire a PR team for $100,000 and do that, right? And so there's something here. The texture of this is very strong. So let's continue to present that. So if I were to use one example, and there are 100, that one clearly said to me instantly, there's something here that we haven't seen before.
When we did when the consulate was visiting us in October, when we came back from Honfleur, remember the press conference at the mayor's office?
Yeah.
That got televised, and I was getting calls from my cousins in Montreal saying, was that you? So people in Montreal were seeing the telecast that was going on here in Burlington last October.
Well,
so
and-
you know people are paying attention.
They
People
certainly
Yeah, well,
love
think about
that.
it. The exchange rate is virtually the same, right? Where it used to be 60 cents and $1. There's 18% sales tax up in the north. We're much less. We are on a lake. We have a lot of entertainment. We have a lot of restaurants. We have a lot of hotels, and it's a fun place to visit. A lot of Canadians on homes in Stowe. So if you're trying to market an economy to somebody, and a little bit away you got a couple million people, right? You want to send them a message that they are welcomed. We're going to go out of our way to make sure they feel comfortable, and we love them here. Al Gobet, who owns the Breakers, runs the Breakers with Trey, has come out and said it constantly. In July, in the summer months, 50% of his volume is Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
So he's pretty onto this.
Well, you walk
But so are
down-
most of the other restaurants.
You walk down the street, and you inevitably, if you walk into Loonings, you walk into Jess, you walk into Halverson, as I said earlier, you walk into any of the stores, you are very likely to hear somebody speaking French.
Get on a
Walking
JetBlue.
Really?
It's your
There were
language.
There were 8 people. I was sitting down on.
Oh, when we
going-
flew to
Yes,
Honfleur.
When we flew to
You-
Honfleur.
You
remember?
could speak better with people there than I could.
It was great. People were getting on the plane in Burlington, Vermont, and there's these 8 guys who were actually heading over to California.
Yeah.
But they were all French, and not just French from Quebec, but apparently some people from France had met them. And there's a big group of them going for a bodybuilding
Right.
competition.
But they were entranced.
Yeah, they were. So no matter where you walk, you in Burlington, you will hear people speaking French. So people are, I think, comfortable and feeling welcome.
But the sales tax in Montreal is 18%, and the sales tax here is 7%.
Yes.
So, and since the dollar is about the same either way, to come here shopping is a saving of 11%
Correct.
on everything you buy.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's just worth the 45-minute drive.
Absolutely.
Ernie, does your real estate business advertise in Montreal in English or in French?
Our website has a whole French segment. We we belong to the equivalent of the Montreal Chamber of Commerce, and we do participate. We have several French-speaking people in our system, so we really are open to, in our name. Of course, if you go up to Montreal, you'll see Pomerleau Construction. So that name resonates down here. So we've done a lot of interaction with Canada.
Is that your same family, Pomerleau Construction?
And not immediate, but yes.
Because they created the name.
They created the
Pomerleau,
name,
remember?
right?
It was the story
Yeah,
of the
so
two
yes, the
brothers.
answer is
So
ancient relatives,
that's
but yes.
great to make that connection, to know you own that name.
I own the
You
name.
branded it.
Yeah, we branded it.
I got a master's degree in business administration from UVM, and in my entrepreneurship course, we were divided into project teams. And one of the teams focused on real estate, buying and rehabilitating older residential properties. In the end, the consensus seemed to be that this was not a profitable business. Opportunity due to overcrowding in the field. Even from my own experience, I owned a rental property in New York City suburbs, and the return on the invested capital was quite poor, about 5%. On the other hand, your family has been very successful in real estate. To what do you contribute your success where others have failed?
Well, there's an old saying, if you have to choose between smart or lucky, always choose lucky. So we've been very lucky, but with some focus. The Chittenden County, although we're throughout Vermont, it's a strong economy. I mean, we have survived the recession better than, frankly, any other segment of New England. For a number of reasons, but one of them is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Being passionate about looking at all the moving parts. We had the lowest unemployment rate, the lowest foreclosure rate, the lowest drop in housing pricing. So we've focused on a number of different aspects. Real estate is my world, but we've done retail development, we've done housing developments, we've done office development. And given a specific period of time, I wouldn't want to be building new houses in 2008. That would not have been good. However, I did it up until that point in time and worked it through. So timing is everything, working it through and the like. So, it's like an MRI. You have to slice it. Look at your timing, look at your market, what's happening, where is it going. We've done solar projects and industrial projects and housing projects. To date, we've survived 4 recessions, and have gotten through this one just fine. Interest rates are low. And in 82, I mean, everybody talks about, well, how did you survive? 82 was 10% unemployment, 12% inflation, 18% interest rates. Now, that was a tough time. And I lost 22 grand unions in a bankruptcy and had to work that through. So it's not easy. You go through these ups and downs, but fortunately, this area is strong. Vacancy of homes, of retail, industrial is actually very low. Permitting's hard. You don't get a lot of overgrowth. And so we've been very fortunate, and I think we as a community, with the number of schools that we have, the education, with groups that, like we're talking about here, the diversity, Canada, tourism, we're very lucky.
You're also involved in commercial real estate, as you mentioned, in Burlington. Some people believe that internet shopping will have a devastating impact on brick and mortar retail outlets. Have your business interests been affected by competition from the internet? And what do you believe the future impact will be?
You probably don't know this. I will share this with you because I'm leaving Monday to head a group, an ICSC. It's 60,000 people in developer retail. I'm going to give you a little piece that happened 2 weeks ago, and then I'll tell you how I was involved. Friday before last, for the first time, the United States Senate voted 74 to 24 to allow states to charge sales tax on internet. This has been, talk about passion sitting here as French.
Yeah.
One of my other passions, because I'm a retail developer, I hear daily people screaming. I have on a national blog Mike Trombley, the guy that owns Burlington, a partner in music, advanced music. Classic story, I hear it 100 times. He said, Ernie, I had a guy come in the other day, take a plus $2,000 guitar, drain my brain for an hour, and then I said, take it home. 3 days later, after playing it, talking it, listening to it, spinning it around in the air, comes back and argues about price, but he said, I'm very aggressive on my price. And he goes, okay, now, so we got that done. I'm not paying sales tax. And he goes, what do you mean? We've become a free showroom for the web. So you can take my guitar. Can you call Amazon.com and get your guitar to your house? No. We have local employment. We pay local sales tax. Our people coach soccer and are on boards. And if you wanted to get your Little League team, would Amazon.com be on it? No, it'd be Advanced Music. Anyway, he had to negotiate, but I hear that story all the time. Skipping sales tax is a sport. By the way, you have to pay it. I guarantee you nobody watching, or sometimes me, on your personal filing, it says how much you buy on the web, pay 7% or 6%, depending where you are. Nobody does that. So it is worth $40 million to the state of Vermont. And we're going to get it this year. So the answer is, I have got a coalition of preservationists, and why? If you don't have retail in your downtown, the buildings won't get saved, and your values in your core villages will disintegrate. So one of their screams are, get us protection. We can't compete against the web with that sales tax the way it is. So it has been one of my mantras. I am the East Coast Government Affairs Director for ICSC. I have been charging it. ICSC, working in collaboration with Main Street preservation groups and national retailers. I think this year, because of what just happened 2 weeks ago. So yes, it impacts me dramatically. It is something that is patently unfair, and we need to change.
But the sales tax isn't the only thing. That's a piece of it. But there's also the overhead issue.
Oh, absolutely. Online people are open 24 hours. They've made it very simple, high technology. But I would tell you that one of the drivers, you can't always, and you have to do, but if you can provide service, and I just finished an op-ed, it'll be in the Free Press this week. It's about buy local.
Buy local.
Buy local.
Right.
And why? I mean, we know why.
We know why.
But you know what? It's easy to go on the web, and I just want people to think twice before they do it. Just like we want to think about what are the nuances about attracting our Canadian friends. They're nuances. It isn't much. They just put it out there. And I think if we put it out to Vermonters that, you know, when you buy on the web, well, Mike Trombley said if there is an online sales tax taxable in the state of Vermont, he can hire 2 people. Now, if a business that size can hire 2 people, look at the ripple effect in our economy.
Wow.
Right.
It's
And
huge.
It's just
huge.
important to support our
Anyway,
own local.
it's
just
all
like we do
about
with
local.
food,
What
local
we're
markets,
talking
yeah.
about is local. And the reason that we're strong is not because somebody in Utah is able to sell, you know, cheaper to somebody in Vermont. It's because we acknowledge Vermont businesses and we support them, and we support all the moving parts from the arts to the French culture to whatever that next noun may be.
Part of community.
Huh?
Part of community.
It is part of the community.
Your father recently contributed a large sum of money to the YMCA, $1 million,
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
At the time, I was impressed with his story of how, as an altar boy in the church, he began his entrepreneurial career by hiring other boys to clean the pews.
I heard that the other night at the BBA dinner.
Yeah.
I think at that point he wasn't really rich, but he,
He was already thinking about it,
Yeah.
though.
would you like to talk about how you balance the entrepreneurial philosophic value of earning large sums of money against the philanthropic value of giving back to the community?
It's easy. They're one and the same. You know, there's that old story, the more you give, the more you get, and you have to give from the heart. You know, this community has been extremely good to us. Now, we've worked very, very hard, but this community has been very good to us. So we work very hard, at giving back. And remember, giving back enriches the culture of the community, which then makes it stronger, then feeds our system, and then we feed back. Like, it's a two-edged sword. That's why what we're talking about here, but I have a lot of retail. My daughter just opened a retail store on Church Street. That is so cool. I'm bank of dad. And so, I'm so excited to have my daughter back to be part of a fabric. Her grandfather, my father, was a retailer on Church Street. And here you are, 2 generations later, there's another retailer. Dad helped take down all the signs. I was on the advisory committee when we went to a marketplace. I was chairman, brought the BBA 35 years ago to Church Street.
I mentioned
Bill
that
Preston and I and David Pascal brought from the chamber to Church Street what is now called the BBA. It was the DBA or something like that. Anyway, that whole system of giving and receiving and giving and receiving. So if a lot of Canadians come here and shop retail, that's good for me personally, but it's also good for the community. So it doesn't, giving and making money are not, they can be one and the same. And so for us to have started a family foundation and to be able to assist in the Irene Fund, to assist in the YMCA, to do a number of other things, enriches the community, and we're blessed to be able to do that. But as a community is enriched, it becomes better on all levels.
You've really contributed so much to making our community very beautiful and very attractive. So waves of people come over the years to serve our needs for commerce and to enjoy this wonderful community that we have. It's just
and we're sitting in front of a very beautiful building, which I happen to like.
That's your office.
It's my office.
Overlooking Lake Champlain,
But
no
that was
less.
a labor of love. It was that was 33 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
But I just saw that as this jewel on the hill that could be preserved for all time, reflecting the character and the virtues of the community, and being able to have an office in it. See, that's a win-win.
You were telling me the story of how the reconstruction, what was involved in
Oh, it was huge. It was a huge fire. It would have been in the land.
You didn't give up. You just said, "Oh, we'll still fix that."
Well, Woody Allen once said the key to success is to just show up and hang on.
Indeed.
Unfortunately, many of our residents speak only English, and some of those French ancestries have lost their language. Therefore, with these special French language programs to help the merchants learn the language so that we can better serve our guests from Quebec and France in their native language. Linda, how do these courses compare with those at the Alliance in Colchester? And Ernie, as you mentioned, you are financing the courses in the city, so they're much more economical. But your courses at the Alliance are more in depth, right?
Well, they are. They are more. We start at a very classic, tried and true place at our regular adult classes at the center. Our students get a balance of grammar, speaking practice, writing practice, listening practice. It's a very, very well accepted way to teach French. And we cover the gamut. And we have a stepped program, beginning A, B, intermediate A, B, spoken French 1 and 2. And that's good for everybody. When we go downtown, we start from the same place, but we have to condense. And so we concentrate on very, very basic back and forth, giving directions, receiving requests, making a sale, providing basic information about commodities. And we also take a couple of steps further than that. It's always been there, but this spring we're formalizing some cultural content, helping the retailers and service people to better understand the mindset of the Quebecois visitor, to better sort of understand what's in that customer's head when he or she walks into the store. And the other thing that we're doing is that if people have certain terms and vocabulary that they know will be handy every day, we help them develop that and learn that.
Speaking of the spoken French, people will come up to me, just because I speak French as often as I can in my work, and they'll say, you know, I took French in school, and so I can read French, and I can read French, and let me see, they were saying, what is it, you learn it in school so you can read it, and you can write it, but they were saying, I have trouble speaking it. They can read it and they can write it, but they have trouble speaking. I said, that's what the spoken French classes are with Alliance Francaise, is to take you to that next level and give you comfort in a very relaxed environment, a very welcoming environment where people can speak to practice and to use their French, as opposed to just being limited of being able to read it and write. Read it and write it.
It is a different skill.
Yeah.
And most adults feel a little bit of anxiety in taking it off the page and actually using it in life. But we do our best to be helpful with that leap.
That gets me to my next question, the French conversation groups in Burlington, which are organized under the name of Pause Cafe. One group meets every Sunday afternoon between 4 and 5:30, as I think you mentioned, Lise, and at the Fletcher Free Library on College Street in Burlington. And on nice days in the summer, we sometimes move outside to the front lawn to play the traditional French game of pétanque, which is similar to bocce. And I've always enjoyed that in the summertime, playing pétanque and playing it in French. And
We've played it a few times, you and me, Terry.
Yes, yes. It's usually quite a good group. Sometimes as many as 6 or 7 people on the front lawn of the library. Another group meets every Tuesday afternoon from 4:30 to 5:30 in the back room of Halverson's on Church Street in Burlington. And I guess we would all agree that these groups have been helpful in maintaining the French language and helping people with their pronunciation and the spoken French, don't you think?
I think they really have, and if you want, I've got a little bit of history there. I was actually a charter member of the original Pose Cafe conversation group. A couple of our board members and I were all in the same French class here. I'm going to just say 15, 16 years ago. And our professor at the time said, he was Congolese, and he had friends in the community, and he said, let me put something out to you. We were a small class of lower intermediate and struggling at that, I might add. He said, I have friends in the community who are francophones. They speak French. I'd like to get off campus to have just a friendly French table environment where I can speak French with my friends out in the community. How would you, my 6 or 7 students in this class, like to take this on as a project? And we jumped on it. And people who have been in Burlington for a while will remember Samsara Cafe. That was where we started. And we went one night a week, about 6 o'clock in the evening, and we did, in fact, attract native French speakers, people for whom French was important in their business. Now I'm going to forget the name of that company that does international development. RDI? Anyway. And students like us. And we were all levels, and everybody was very welcoming. And if you weren't necessarily already very advanced in your speaking, the people there were very, very supportive and welcoming. And this was before, frankly, I was ever, that I knew that there was an effort to have an Alliance Francaise here in Vermont. I didn't even know that. And it really took off. And it has been ongoing all these years. And I don't think, occasionally, of course, there's been a holiday, or for one reason or another, maybe only 1 or 2, or nobody showed up. But in general, it attracts between 6 and 20 people at every meeting. From that original group, the Sunday library group was added, and a group that meets a little earlier in the day, the Halverson group that you mentioned, is the newest addition, and that has been formulated specifically for people who are sort of in that intermediate area. we adults, we get a little anxious about our spoken French, and this gives them a chance to take the time they need to get the words out without worrying about how that advanced native speaker over there might respond.
When I first came to Burlington about 6 years ago, the group was meeting at Borders in the balcony,
Uh-huh.
and I really enjoyed joining them, and there were parties, and it was an opportunity for the French people to socialize with each other.
Yes.
And since then, they've moved from restaurant to restaurant, and now it's at Halverson's in the library. And there's also another group that meets at Mr. Krepp, I think.
Mr. Krepp. Mr. Krepp is the place where I would say that's the original Post Cafe, the 6 o'clock-ish group that started all those years ago is now at Mr. Krepp. The intermediate speaker group is the one at Halverson's, and free for all for everybody at the library on Sundays.
But this show is picked up all around Vermont. And, the people in Middlebury, there's a group that meets, I think it's on Saturday, at the restaurant there across from the Episcopal Church. And when I was in Middlebury, I used to attend their meetings too.
Les boulangers,
Les
the
boulangers,
bakers,
oui.
because they meet at a bakery. They've actually, to my knowledge, they've been in existence a long time. An emeritus professor of French, Simon Berenbaum, from Middlebury, and also an ex-director of a previous rendition of Alliance Francaise here in Vermont, started that group years and years ago. They're sort of our granddad group.
A very special feature of Burlington is Church Street. This is a 4-block street which is the center of Burlington's downtown and shopping district. It is a pedestrian-only street, closed to traffic, cars and bicycles. I lived in Scandinavia for a while, and it is quite common to find streets like this there, but it is very rare here in North America. Many tourists arrive here to shop, dine, and sightsee during the nice weather. Even during the winter, it is a center of attraction with decorative lights, entertainment, and nice sculptures. Recently, during the warm weather, a special table has been set up with the flag of Quebec above it to help tourists with information in French. How did this get started, and do we expect this to continue this service during the coming summer? Has it been very popular with the tourists?
Up to this point, I haven't had a lot of personal hands-on, but I get a lot of anecdotes because I deal every day with people who have been involved. Church Street Marketplace Association began that endeavor. I'm going to say in 2007 or 8. Is that about right?
I think
do you
it's about right, because
Yeah.
2009 it was full-fledged. So.
And the reports I've heard is that people love it. The Quebecois feel like they actually have a place to go when they need information. The people that staff the tent really enjoy meeting people and getting a chance to use their French. I think it has really added a lot to the French-friendly feeling that we're all attempting to establish in Burlington.
And Lise, you were talking to Ron about
Right.
making sure that the web is really French.
Right.
You know, and working with the various elements. I mean, we walked the marketplace with Ron the other day with the Consul General and talked about ideas about, you know, putting up French flag on Bastille Day and then doing a Quebec celebration and trying to create a lot of the even subtler elements of support so that we have a combined, you know, Quebec-Vermont base. But the marketplace is the stage. If you go to traditional retail, it's the same anywhere USA. The marketplace is, as you indicated, Terry, very unusual. There's probably not a handful of successful open pedestrian malls in a community in the United States. It doesn't happen by accident. It was carefully designed. It got more and more successful and expanded. But it's that promotional element. It's our connection to Canada. The restaurants become promenades. You go there on a beautiful Friday night, you can't walk the place. So it's architecture, it's uniqueness, but it's the constant attention to detail. And one of them is to make sure that we are a stage that presents ourselves as being user-friendly to Canada.
Definitely well said, absolutely. And I believe that the synergy that happens on the marketplace in Burlington is something anyone walking there can feel. And I think with the French aspect of it, the recognition, whether it's the colors or the flags or the stands and then the shops carrying the logos to let people know, hey, we're trying.
Je parle français un peu.
We have the blue buttons that say Je parle français, and then the ones that say Je parle français un peu. We're encouraging people to wear those. And then we have the Alliance Francaise with the button that's
Yes,
Parlons français. And let's speak French. And so we're growing, we're maturing. And I think
Or Québécois, bienvenue.
Bienvenue.
I mean, to Québécois.
Oui.
So.
Yeah.
There had been some talk about establishing a church street in Rutland. Do you think that's going to materialize?
Wow. I don't think I have enough data. I could tell you anything you want to know about the marketplace here, but I really don't know the elements of Rutland. I support anything that you can do to make a downtown stronger.
Well, they've obviously been attracted by our success here.
People come from all over the United States. I don't think a month goes by where somebody doesn't come to Burlington, Vermont to meet with members of the marketplace and to walk that street and try to figure out why it's successful, because they want to emulate it.
You know, I think it came up in a time when a lot of cities were trying it, and in city after city, it just failed.
They brought the cars back.
Right, and I'm not really trying to put a plug here, but with
Go
public
ahead.
safety, with public safety, and I know Burlington Police, I'm affiliated with Burlington Police Department as well, and I think there's a downtown safety presence that was been worked on very hard between the mayor, the marketplace, the business association, Burlington Business Association, Kelly Devine's group, and everyone working together to make it feel and look safe and very healthy. And I think that is a combination, that plus the French. Obviously, we're here talking French. But I think it's a mix.
That's highly overlooked because it's done so efficiently and so effectively. The night before last, the BBA gave the Burlington Police Department the Business of the Year Award. I mean, talk about, that used to be like this. Now it's like here.
It's
the
amazing.
Business of the
That
Year
cannot
Award.
happen very often.
The
in
Business
other
of a Year
places.
Award went to the Burlington Police Department. Now, I can give you the prior week an anecdotal piece that I was pleasantly surprised at. I had call from two tenants that they were having a serious problem with a homeless person. Ron immediately got Howard Mental Health. They have an ambassador on the street that knew the person.
It's the outreach program.
The outreach program connected with the police officer on charge.
Yep,
of
mental
this.
health specialists that are available to
And,
the police
and
department.
even at 4 o'clock in the morning, you have these people in yellow jackets going through,
Parks
making
patrols,
people feel safe, addressing the homeless in a very effective, caring, humanitarian
Caring,
way.
humane way.
And so that problem was resolved. But it was done in a collaborative effort, very nicely, very discreetly, between the police and Howard Mental Health and the marketplace.
And that is unique to some degree to Burlington because of community-oriented policing has been the initiative, and it's something you just don't say it is and then it exists. It's something you have to work at and develop, and that's what the Burlington Police Department has been doing for the last 10, 15 years.
And it's funded. And just think about the discussion that we're having. We talk to the marketplace about issues surrounding French and flags and conversations, and boy, they're on it.
Right.
So,
Make it happen.
and whether it's a police issue or a cultural issue or a maintenance issue or how to promote that street, it's a stage. It is our stage. It's how car shows go and promenades go and the kiosk. And I was at its inception, and there was a lot of dialogue about how do you fund it, how do you keep it, do you use kiosks, how big is it going to be? We designed it so that we could put cars back on the street. There was a very strong concern that if you take cars off, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. If you take cars off the street, you will lose the activity. Well, here we are 30 odd years later, and it's fine.
The activity used to be driving.
Yeah,
down
and
Church.
check. Well, I used to,
Checking it
in my earlier days, I would, on Friday night, you'd run the street.
This reminds me of something that kind of links us back to our whole effort to connect a little better with Quebec. About a year ago, I became aware that the Market Street Consortium had a twin city relationship with Drummondville, Quebec. They have an organization that's somewhat akin, I think, to the Chamber of Commerce. It's called Fondation des Rues Principales, Main Street Foundation.
Okay.
And the two organizations share visits. And last year at about this time, when we were celebrating International Francophonie Month, we had a cheese tasting that featured some of the fabulous cheeses that we produce now
Of
in
Vermont.
Vermont that are based on traditional French cheese-making methods. I was really excited about this event. We had some
Well,
pretty
we've
good
had
wine.
Yeah, the
cave,
waterfront.
yeah,
It's
we
at the
have
waterfront
and we
theater.
have a cave process developed in France outside of Hardwick or something.
Exactly. So this happened to coincide with a visit of a contingent of about a dozen business people from Drummondville, and they all came to our reception. So, you know, every little bit of synergy really helps the whole effort. So many times, something that you're planning simply to make life better here ends up attracting people from there, and it's good.
It's a domino effect.
The goodness at this core just spreads out.
As we mentioned before, we have a sister city relationship with Honfleur in France, and you mentioned Drummondville.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to establish a sister city relationship between Burlington and Drummondville, maybe not just the Chamber of Commerce, but the same as we have with Honfleur?
I know that Quebec consulate is very much interested in that, and of course it's a process to evolve a new sister city or twinning, but definitely something we encourage relationships to continue to grow between Burlington and Quebec for sure.
The city is very much behind that relationship between Drummondville and the Church Street Marketplace. They're aware of it and encourage it, and it could grow.
But there are other candidates too. For instance, Magog would be a
sure.
natural
Right on
sister
the lake.
city.
The lake, yeah.
That's
Very
true.
very
That's-
Because of the
artistic.
lakefront, yeah.
That's a beautiful idea. We put you in charge, Terry.
There you go.
My cousin ran the ferries
Yeah.
up until last year. For about 20 years, she ran the ferries on Lake Magog.
And the ferries went from Magog to Newport?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yeah. Still do. It's just she doesn't run it anymore.
that's a very long trip, isn't it? Even longer than across Lake Champlain.
I was on it, but there was a party, so I don't know how long.
It was
It was
short.
a good time.
At the French Conversation Group last Tuesday, a woman was telling us about a sister city relationship that her hometown in Pennsylvania had with the city of Outremont, which is just north and over the hill from Montreal. The two cities each maintain an apartment where visitors from the other can stay.
Oh,
Wouldn't that be a nice idea for us to have a place to stay when we visit Quebec?
yes, capital Y-E-S, yes, that would be
Yes.
great. That would be great.
Much better than a
See,
hotel.
now that you've mentioned it, the synergy is going to happen. It
It
will
is
develop.
done.
Somebody will hear this and say, hey, we've got a place for you.
We could choose a city just based upon their willingness to supply us with a place to stay.
Stay,
right?
right?
There you go. We're
The phone-
easy.
The phone will be ringing.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. I want to thank everybody for coming.
Thank
And,
you.
Merci.
It was
And-
such a pleasure. Thank you, Terry.
yes, for our viewers at home, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next month for another edition of Vermont Today.
Merci.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, see.
Right.
All right. Well done. Thank you.
I think we got the full,
You got the whole thing.
my time slide is an hour and a half, so
Oh,
try to fill it.
You know, it's funny, you get the dad, you know, the stories Terry, you were saying about dad. He's got 1,000 stories, but because he lived through the Depression and he had to stay, from the time he was 3 years old to the time he was 9, he doesn't remember.
He doesn't really remember.
Doesn't remember. He was pushed
Suppressed.
off of a ledge in a house, fell on a bucket, and his left side failed to grow at the same rate as his right side. Now, that's where your heart is. His hand was this much shorter, and his legs were the same, but and they because he can't remember, and I never got any data from my
I was
grandparents.
going to say, who else?
And he doesn't remember anything, so All we know is that he was in a body brace. Now, this was when they smashed it out of metal and sewed leather over it.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Oh
sort of-
my God.
I think what he did is he learned how to not deal with pain. Today, he can almost have his teeth drilled and not have Novocaine. He turns it off.
Turns it off.
And he also deletes things that are unpleasant. So if you ask him, does anything happen in your life like this, he doesn't know.
Right.
Now, what happened from the time he was 3 to the time he was 9, his mother, Elma Momere, went to St. Anne de Beaupré, took the body
harness.
brace. Now, he was 9 years old. He was told by every doctor that he would, now this is from his brother who relayed the stories, would not live to see his 12th birthday. Now, he's 95 years old. They hung it up. I've seen it. I've been
there.
I'll share something I don't tell many people. My confirmation name is Anne. Saint Anne de Beaupré. I was like,
patron saint of Quebec.
Patron saint of Quebec. I did a pilgrimage every year with my father to Saint Anne de Beaupré, to the Basilica.
Wow.
You know, I'm sorry.
And anyway, so they hung it up, and for reasons, you can call it a miracle, power of prayer, or power of thought. It's all one.
Whatever.
It worked.
He at that moment, I mean day, second within that year, his memory came back. He didn't even remember learning English, but he still spoke English. Didn't remember the grammar school that he had gone to, but went in and readapted. So there was this blank. So, but anyway, so here you are, a kid that learned survival skills and coping skills and but learned to take all the noise out here and make it this way,
Wow.
and only see the function. So then he survived. It was really hard for his family through the Depression. But when he was 14 years old, much like the story about the altar boys, and they were true, he figured out that he had to leverage other people, right? So he started this hand waxing, what we call detailing today.
Yeah.
Not to that degree. So at 14, he would go into neighborhoods and look for Packards, the biggest car of the day, right? The Cadillac Plus, and go to them and figure they got a Packard, they got to have money.
That's so smart about
So
that,
he
though.
would
Such a
go
business
at
person.
14. He would drive the car down. Now, guess what? Public parking lot doesn't charge you rent. He hired a married man to do the detailing as he went out and got the cars, and then he had to hire 2. So he charged $1, cost him 10 cents for the product. He gave the guys 50 cents. He took 50 cents, but it cost him 10.
Yeah.
So in the course of time, they were making 50 cents each. He was making 80.
Yeah. He was telling me that story as well, and I was like, he is very proud of that.
Yeah.
But it's a good symbol of the business mind.
Yeah.
That he
He
really
learned it
had.
well.
Yeah.
It's a survival skill.
And he taught that to you, to the children. So
Well,
I think that's
he
naturally.
and then he got into, his father died when he was 18. He owed, they didn't, before insurance and a lot of stuff, but he asked the doctor if he would take care of his father. They ran up a bill of $5,000. Now, when you're making $12 a week, $5,000 might as well be $5 million. Now, he paid it back, but he was driven, and he took care of his mother, and he became a shoe salesman, and then he figured out how to do windows, and then they kept moving him from store to store. The worse the store was is where they would send him, and he'd build it up, and then they'd get him another store and another store. He came to Burlington, Vermont, and said, "That's it, I'm staying here." And then he got in the supermarket business, had a couple of supermarkets with my godfather at the time. And then he brought Clico Club and Schlitz beer. And then he got in the bowling alley business and the car business, then eventually got in the real estate business, selling homes. That's why we know a little bit about homes. And so, but then he said, well, if I'm going to sell homes, I probably ought to try to sell them insurance, because I have a captive audience. So he started a little insurance company, and then they grew. And then he had a friend building post-World War II homes who had a lot of money, and he had seen these things called motels where you park your car in front. And he said, well, we ought to do, and then he started to see them start to do that with retail.
Yep.
So he said, well, let's,
That's where the mall idea came from?
well, sure,
The
see,
little-
motel, you only had hotels.
Like
Right.
motor hotel.
Yeah,
Right.
motor hotel. So when the suburban sprawl after the war came, they said, well, maybe we could do little motels, motor hotels. And if you park front and you're traveling along, that might be more convenient and less expensive than these big guys. So then the next level was retail. Well, if that works for hotels, then maybe it works for business and retail. So,
Yep.
and then that's where our business kind of developed. Yeah. So anyway, that was his, you know.
But he was always thinking, it's that whole, I can
Well,
do better, I can do
When
more.
we
I can do-
started, when I started after
Can-do
college,
attitude.
there were 3 people in the company. I remember, I was born in a 1-bedroom rented apartment on the old North End, and I played in sandboxes. So, this just all didn't happen, you know, you just talked about Dad giving away the money. It wasn't given to us, so.
You know, I love hearing that, because when my father, I said my parents came to this country, didn't speak a word of English, right? And they actually went to Connecticut first, which is where I was born, Waterbury, Connecticut. We're not being taped, right? So, my first home was literally like
People
a
are still
shack.
listening,
It was
though.
like a shack.
Yeah,
And we had an outhouse. This-
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford, keep in mind, they came from Canada, no money.
oh,
Didn't speak
interesting.
language, weren't really working yet.
Yeah.
Had the ambition and the belief that they were gonna find something. And he found a company that was making, it was Clark Company, again, it was a machinery company. And he went in, he says, okay, I'm gonna work there, but I'm gonna live right out here. And that was the first job, first house, wasn't a house, it was
This was your father?
my father. This is my father, not his father. His father was in Quebec. So to think that in my lifetime, he's done what he's done,
That's
right?
really cool. Yeah, no.
To
I
go
mean,
from
that,
nothing to
it's,
something, it's,
it's amazingly
there's no
rich
base,
heritage.
there was no
yeah.
money, there was no nothing, no house, no language. And now, today, he's got 6 kids, they're all over the country, and we're all doing just fine, and,
Yeah.
right? And we don't even think about those things, but like
Well,
your
I
dad,
just
he-
remember when
it was
in my childhood, I would go to Quebec, but my main was my mother's place. She was from the Maritime provinces, and the farm that I basically grew up on every summer had one of those huge, with a big spigot, and
Yeah.
there was no hot water.
No, you pump.
You pump
You
in the
pump the water.
kitchen.
Yeah.
In the kitchen, the way you got your water was from this, and we had an outhouse, and chickens and
Yeah,
horses
cows,
and
pigs,
but if I took a bath, you had to boil the water
On the
and you went
stove.
on the stove,
Yeah.
in the wood stove,
Right.
and then you brought it to another room and you put it in a big tub and you did your thing there. But it was, the outhouse was, of course, as a kid, I thought the house.
We didn't know any
I was-
different.
what
We
it-
have pictures, literally.
That's
I got
what
my
you
little
had
black-
Sears catalogs
I have my little
for.
black patent leather shoes on, right?
Yeah.
Pretty little dress.
Yeah.
There's a great picture, my hair's all done up,
Yeah,
but in the back is that,
Outhouse.
yeah, very cool.
in the
I
dirt,
grew up with one of
forget
those
the
too.
grass, it was
Yeah.
dirt. And I was like, my parents were proud.
I remember
Just a
being
little dog.
attacked by a,
So it makes
geese
you
can
realize that was
be, geese
real,
can
it
be
wasn't just-
nasty.
Yes, they can.
So
Was
there's
that
there's
bees?
geese can be
Oh,
really
geese.
nasty. So I accidentally go into a geese pen
Ooh.
because I thought they were cute, right? It was this big. Well, I opened the door and you know how they go. "Wah, wah." So I'm running as fast as I can.
They're nipping you.
And they're biting me. Well, I come around the corner, I'm like screaming. My grandmother comes out. I guess she was going to have decided one was for dinner. And she takes a broom, and as I'm running by, she takes it and basically takes its neck off. And I went, "Thanks, Grandma."
Wow.
And there's dinner.
Dinner. Gets it off
A lot
my.
of people don't like
Gets
to
it
hear
off
all-
my ass,
Yeah.
literally, and then we have dinner.
People sometimes don't like to hear those stories, but that's real.
That's
I
what
mean,
farm life's like.
Yeah.
It's life.
Yep, I've pulled the guts out of a chicken several times.
Yeah,
Do what you gotta do, you
Yeah.
know?
if you're going to eat. Well, anyway, Terry, thank you for setting
Thank
this
you,
up.
Ernie.
Thanks.